The time is 6:15. Here is the news, edited by Dilini Gunawardhana, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. The initial restricted discussions of the government with the steering committee of the ad hoc group of bondholders are concluded. Dr. Harsha De Silva accuses that the government has no transparency in the debt restructuring process. The Lower Malwatoya multi-purpose development project is recommenced. Myanmar pardons Sri Lanka sentenced to 7 years in prison. New voter registration lists will be displayed from the 6th of May. Foreign news, Hamas says freeing prisoners is a top priority. Sports news, the Olympics are ready for a splashy comeback after 2 COVID-era games. Local news in detail. The government has concluded the initial restricted discussions with 9 members of the steering committee of the ad hoc group of bondholders regarding its international sovereign bonds. During the discussions, which spanned over the past 3 weeks, Sri Lanka was joined by its legal and financial advisors Clifford Chance and Lazard, respectively, while the restricted members of the steering committee were joined by the group's legal and financial advisors, White and Case and Rothschild and Co., respectively. The steering committee as a whole comprises 10 of the largest members of the group, with the group controlling approximately 50% of the aggregate outstanding amount of ISBs. In a statement, Sri Lanka's finance ministry said that the parties failed to come to an agreement on restructuring terms, despite the constructive discussions. However, the ministry added that the government is looking forward to continue the engagement and to reach a common ground in the next few weeks, ahead of the review of the IMF-supported program by Executive Board. Meanwhile, the opposition Samaggi Jana Balawegaya has expressed disappointment over the government's lack of transparency related to the restricted discussions held with the ad hoc group of bondholders of its international sovereign bonds. The government, in a statement Tuesday, announced that it has held restricted discussions over the past 3 weeks with 9 members of the steering committee who agreed to take part in the restricted discussions of the ad hoc group of bondholders of its international sovereign bonds. However, commenting on this statement, SJB MP Dr. Harsha De Silva said the SJB was disappointed that there has been absolutely no transparency in the government's debt restructuring process, even though the SJB had requested for same. He further said that it was clear that the participating bondholders do not want to move away from the original macro-linked bond structure they proposed based on the performance of Sri Lanka economy to be measured on their much higher alternative baseline as opposed to that of the IMF. He further urged the government to be much more transparent in this restructuring process, given that elections are around the corner and that the next government and those to come will be held responsible for honoring the conditions agreed upon this agreement. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, the steering committee on the Lower Malwatoya multi-purpose development project met recently under the initiative of additional district secretariat lands at the Anuradhapura district secretariat. Construction of the Lower Malwatoya development project will recommence expeditiously. This project involves 4 regional secretariat divisions. 3 of them belong to Anuradhapura district and 1 to Manau district. This Lower Malwatoya multi-purpose development project, which started in 2021, was temporarily suspended due to the recent economic calamities. Again, this year, 27,000 million rupees has been allocated for the further constructions. Manau district will reap the highest benefit of this project, which includes improvement of irrigation system, drinking water, electricity generation, flood and drought control, mining industry and tourism. Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Ali Sabri announced that the government of Myanmar has granted general amnesty to 15 Sri Lankan fishermen who were sentenced to 7 years of rigorous imprisonment today. Taking to X, Minister Sabri said that the 15 Sri Lankan fishermen were taken into custody last December by Myanmar authorities. A total of 15 Sri Lankan fishermen were arrested along with 2 fishing vessels for violating Myanmar's maritime boundaries and engaging in fishing activities. The fishermen hailing from Kalpiti and Negombo, who set sail last November in 2 vessels, were arrested last December by the Myanmar authorities. In April this year, Sri Lanka formally petitioned the Myanmar government for clemency on behalf of the detained Sri Lankan fishermen. The Sri Lankan ambassador to Myanmar, Janaka Bandara, said the appeal was made anticipating Myanmar's Public Amnesty Day, marked on the 17th of April. The Election Commission said that the new voter registration lists will be displayed in all Gram Niladhari offices from the 6th of May. This will be available in all district secretariats, election offices, divisional secretariats and provincial councils as well. The Election Commission stated that after checking the voter register, voters who do not have their name included in the list should file a claim in the relevant district election office. The relevant application is available on the website of the Election Commission. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
The Department of Examinations said the admission card will be issued for candidates sitting for the 2023-24 GCE Ordinary Level Examination next week. School applicants can obtain the admission card through the respective principals, while it will be sent via post to private candidates. The O-level exam will be held from May 6th to 15th. The Department of the Examination said 452,979 candidates will sit for the exam this year. That ends main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Department of Immigration and Immigration said a new visa process will be in effect from today. The new visa system, related fees, requirements to be fulfilled, and the period of stay in the country were recently announced via a special gazette. Details regarding the online method can be obtained via the official website www.srilankaevisa.lk. Controller General of Immigration and Immigration Harsha Ilokpitia said applications can submit visa applications online from several countries under the new system. Tourist visas can be obtained for 6 months through the new visa process. Student visas for foreign nationals will also be issued for the full period of studies, which could be up to 4 years before their arrival. Applicants can also apply for the Nomad visa and medical visa through the new online system. That came to you on Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Headlines first. Hamas says freeing prisoners is a top priority. The UK Foreign Secretary is in Israel to urge against war with Iran. Aung San Suu Kyi is moved to house arrest. Foreign news in detail. Today is Palestinian Prisoners' Day, a national day dedicated to freeing Palestinian prisoners and showing support for their rights. In a statement marking the day, Hamas emphasized that freeing its prisoners from Israeli jails is a top priority. Hamas accused Israel of continuous practice of heinous crimes against prisoners inside prisons and detention centers, including medical negligence, torture and direct killing. It further added that it holds Israel fully responsible for the lives and safety of the thousands of abductees detained in the West Bank since the 7th of October. David Cameron has urged Israel to do as little as possible to escalate tensions in the Middle East, ahead of talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel has vowed to retaliate after Iran's unprecedented missile and drone attack at the weekend. The UK Foreign Secretary will push Israel to rein in the scale of its response over fears it could lead to a wider war. He called on Israel's government to be smart as well as tough. Speaking to reporters shortly after arriving in Jerusalem today, Lord Cameron said he was there to show solidarity after that appalling attack by Iran. The Myanmar military has said the jailed former leader and Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved from prison to house arrest as a health measure amid a severe heat wave. Aung San Suu Kyi and the president of her toppled government, Win Myint, were among the elderly and infirm prisoners transferred from prison. Suu Kyi has been imprisoned by the Myanmar military since 2021. She has been serving a 27-year prison term on a variety of criminal convictions that her supporters and rights groups say were fabricated for political reasons. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines. Hamas says freeing prisoners is a top priority. The UK Foreign Secretary is in Israel to urge against war with Iran. Aung San Suu Kyi is moved to house arrest. That ends world news. Moving on to development news, the chairman of Colombo Stock Exchange, CSE, Dilshan Veerasekara, noted that the overall outlook of the CSE for 2024 seems to be positive due to the positive outlook for the country as a whole. He further said that the turnover level of the exchange have experienced a significant uptick from what it was at the beginning of the year. The most significant reason for this is because the country is currently in a default status. He also predicted that overall they were quite optimistic that activity and turnover will increase during years and the market will perform well for the year 2024 as economic conditions continue to improve. That ends development news.
Moving on with sports news.
News on Olympics. In exactly 100 days, more than 10,000 athletes and tens of thousands of spectators will converge in Paris for the start of the 33rd Summer Olympic Games, a 16-day extravaganza that marks the first time the City of Lights has hosted the world's preeminent sports festival in a century. In keeping with the slogan of this year's Olympics, Games Wide Open, the opening ceremony will take place outside a stadium setting for the first time. The plans are ambitious. A 3.5-mile boat parade along the Seine before as many as 325,000 onlookers on their river's banks. The hundreds of athletic events hosted by dozens of venues across Paris and other cities in metropolitan France will likewise be open to large crowds. That ends the sports news.
Go ekaktiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyameta setna aswagena dakapuina habekarana youth ekata niyameta setna friendship ekamenna.
The all-new NSB Itru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Waterwala Plantations plc announced a 1.86 million rupees investment towards the installation of a dedicated electricity transformer, ensuring reliable power for Nakia Denia's residents and its palm oil mill. The installation of the new transformer will help to reliably cater to growing demand of electricity for both the Noakia Denia palm oil mill and the fast-growing residential communities in the region. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, State Finance Minister Syansay Masinga took part in the World Bank's Biodiversity Financing Forum on the sideline of the IMF World Bank spring meeting in Washington on Tuesday. Colombo Stock Exchange introduced listing of green bonds in April last year. The money raised from green bonds are a nature-linked debt instrument could be used only for green projects such as renewable energy. That ends economic news.
Weather report.
Showers or thundershows will occur at several places in the western and sub-regional provinces and in the Gol and Mathura districts after 2 p.m. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the north, central and northwestern provinces and in the Mana districts during the afternoon or night. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western sub-region and central provinces and in the Gol and Mathura districts during the morning hours. That ends weather report. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. The initial restricted discussions of the government with the steering committee of the ad hoc group of bondholders are concluded. Dr. Harza de Silva accuses that the government has no transparency in the debt restructuring process. The Lower Malwathoya multi-purpose development project is recommenced. Myanmar pardons Sri Lanka's sentence to 7 years in prison. New voter registration lists will be displayed from the 6th of May. Foreign news, Hamas says, freeing prisoners is a top priority. Sports news, the Olympics are ready for a splashy comeback after 2 COVID-era games. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka. Back to my good friend and viewers, Romesh Peris.